Hey everybody, E5 here, and I am excited to do our first Ask Me Anything video. About a week ago, I created a new channel on our Discord server called Ask E5 Anything, which is an attempt to try to get to know each other better and allow you guys to ask me any question you would like about myself personally, or Darkest Dungeon, or streaming, etc. And finally, we have hit 5,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is incredible, and I figure we celebrate by doing our first AMA, so here we go. So the first question is from Kayla Darkfire, and they ask, how much cool is in you? Exactly 0. I'm not a cool individual. So I'm gonna attempt to actually answer this seriously. I have done some cool things in my life. I was a lead guitarist for a punk rock band for a long time, for about 5 years, I should say. And I started that when I was 16. So when I was about 16, I was playing in a punk band as a lead guitarist and doing most of the venues throughout Colorado, which was awesome. That is about as cool as I've ever been, I think. I'm a lifelong nerd. I have the nerd body to prove it. And I think that's about as far as my level of cool goes. Thank you for the question, Kayla. Lith Brimstar says, what made you decide to take the leap to streaming, and why Darkest Dungeon? Well, for a few reasons. First is that I'm a lifelong gamer, as I said, so I've just always been a nerd. So when I was a kid, I really wheeled and dealed in comics and like collector cards and stuff like that. I got into Magic the Gathering. And then of course, as soon as I got my first PC, which was like a 400 processor, I got really deep into a game called Tribes 2, which is a competitive, it's a competitive capture the flag first person shooter. It is amazing. I love the hell out of that game. I played it very competitively on ladders, and really got into a competitive / leadership focus for it. And that just opened my world into the idea of being community oriented and organized. So that led into like World of Warcraft and leading guilds and doing all that stuff. So that is kind of just my nature and who I am. About 5 years into college, I was studying psychology. I turned 26 and suddenly one morning I woke up and didn't have vision in one of my eyes. And I didn't know why. And saw the doctors and they said, hey, you have a massive retinal tear and we're gonna have to do surgery and do all these different things. And I spent about 2 years trying to save the vision in this eye. But something really, really hit me about 2 years ago, which took away my ability to function normally in a lot of different ways. I had massive fatigue, brain fog, memory issues, muscle weakness was the main feature. Doctors upon doctors upon doctors and spent many thousands of dollars trying to diagnose if I had MS or early onset Parkinson's, or if there was something wrong with my spine, and just never got anywhere. Got myself into trauma therapy with a really, really excellent trauma therapist. And she helped me not only realize that I'm stronger than I think I am and that the world is going to be okay, but that I should pursue something that I really care about and that I would be good at. And I immediately thought about streaming. Content creation is a thing I have always wanted to do, and never ever took a chance to actually try and do it until I was 33. I'm 35 now. It wasn't until I was 33 that I had that whole series of events happen to me that I finally went, okay, I need to actually like spend my life pursuing the things that I want to. So that's why I got into streaming, was basically to escape all of that noise. I just needed to focus myself in something that I was going to be good at and really cared about, and streaming was the answer. And that is why that is where ElementFive came from. That is where the whole robotic theme came from, separating myself from the emotional creature that I've always been, constantly terrified, hyper anxious, hypersensitive, being able to put aside all of that fear and anxiety and release the machine and just think positively about life, lean into challenges and actually tackle things that matter, and think more rationally about the world. Literally a response to trauma and anxiety, and that I didn't want to feel it anymore. So now suddenly I'm getting into streaming and I'm thinking, what the hell do I want to stream? What makes sense? And my intuitive sense is, what can I do? And I think I can teach people fairly well. And I think I can talk about concepts fairly well. And I think that given the state of my eyesight and my health in large, I will not do first-person shooters and other like really Twitch-oriented action games as well. So I kind of seeded myself into trying Darkest Dungeon. So attached to that question, Lord Zane says, what made you decide on mods? It seems most of the DD community is vanilla. In fact, you are one of 2 or 3 modded content users I could find. Why mods when vanilla seems to be more popular and a safer bet? That's a really interesting question, Zane, and I think I agree with you. I think playing non-modded content is a safer bet for a few reasons, because it is more available to more people. It is actually a challenge to explain and relate modded content to people who don't know anything about it. Though I really enjoy that challenge. I love showing people that modded content is amazing, this community is incredible, and that it's worthwhile. But I think in all, it is more challenging to stream because people think, like I get a lot of hate by people who are purists or elitists, and they think, well, it's modded, so it's just broken. It's not purely what the game was meant to be, and all these things. That just doesn't interest me. I mean, I've beaten the game many a times in complete vanilla on different difficulties, and that's awesome, but I want more, and I want to facilitate showcasing all of the crazy sacrifice and work and creativity that people have who also are very passionate about this game. In addition to this, Purple Trash asks, your history with DD, when did you hear about the game, and how did you get to know most of the modding community? It's in honor of the game itself and the genre to showcase the kind of cool and creative things that people are doing for it. The first day I started streaming, Musgreen was in chat, but he didn't say anything. And then the next couple days, he showed up, and Action Jack showed up, and a couple other modders showed up, and they were like, hey, you're playing my stuff, and here's how it works, and here's how I would use it, and here's a suggestion over here. And I was so blown away by the fact that they wanted to be a part of my stream and actually communicate with me and see me play their stuff that I became addicted to that. I immediately thought, holy crap, I'm so honored to be showcasing your stuff to other viewers. So that is why I stuck with modded content, and I am so glad I did, because it just introduced me to such a phenomenal and rich community. And if you just look at Claire's Moonlit Dungeon project and server now, you immediately know what I'm talking about. Like, it's how much talent there is here, how many amazing people there are here. And even though there are those nagging voices who say, you're playing that mod and it's busted or whatever, well, okay, I don't really believe in perfect balance anyway. But what I care about is that we're having fun, we're being creative, and we're challenging ourselves as content creators to make really good and interesting and challenging content, and that I get to do the honorable thing of showcasing that to other people. Citizen P says, what line of work were you in before you started streaming full time for the better part of the week? I assume that you have a professional life outside of streaming, that it'd also be interesting for me to know. Thank you for the question, Citizen P. Yeah, so as I said, I went through college for several years studying psychology, and I was pretty certain I was going to maybe pursue a doctorate or at least get my master's and do some sort of work in the field of psychology. It really was the first time I was in school and thought to myself, I should be in school. I like being in school, and I really like learning. But then, of course, when my eye happened, I let that go. However, not long after, a friend of mine had a pretty serious brain injury. He spent 4 months of his life relearning how to walk, talk, breathe, and eat. And he gave me a call one day. And I said, oh my God, I'm so sorry that happened to you. That's insane. And because I was so into psychology, and because I loved him dearly, I was like, we got to talk about this. What can I do for you? He's all about helping people. And I got on board with that. So I helped him build a website. I helped him produce a podcast. I did for a long time work in the health field, helping people with brain injuries with different odd jobs and web tasks and social media management and all that stuff. I did about 6 years of pizza delivery, which is where a lot of the pizza memery and those kinds of jokes and ideas come from in our channel also. Pizza delivery taught me a ton. If you've never worked in the service industry, or if you do, then you know what I'm talking about when I say that, like, working in the service industry teaches you things about life. It teaches you things about people and about yourself. And what it really taught me was you just have to let go, not be so self-critical, think about the long term, and try to feel gratitude as much as possible. I left the world of pizza delivery with that in mind, and I've taken that with me into everything else I do. That is the only way I survived 6 years in the service industry. And I had it pretty easy as a delivery pizza driver. Genoa asks, what did you struggle with the most when you were starting to stream? and have in developing skills slash habits to overcome that? Has it become a strength or otherwise? That's an interesting question, Genoa. Streaming is probably the most challenging and one of the best things I've ever done. So I think that the funny thing about streaming, though, is that few people realize how hard it is, how challenging it is. I spent 3 months before I started actually investing in hardware, software, setup, green screen, getting used to being on camera, having the right audio levels. I still have problems with that. Just like there's something about being a content creator where you are always on, you are always every single day trying to get up and think about how you're going to make interesting content, how you're going to actually compete in this space and compete on Twitch and have people come and watch your stuff. Ultimately, in terms of skills and habits and overcoming that, I think that the reality is I came very face to face with the fact that I suffer from something called imposter syndrome. You don't really feel like you're worth much. Like someday somebody's just gonna find out you're faking it all, basically. Like your achievements aren't real. So that I had to overcome, and I still work on that tremendously. The notion that people actually want to watch my content or care about my videos or want to see me streaming and support that is a foreign notion to me still, and I think will be for a long time. I think deep down, I'm just like this weird looking ginger who decided he was gonna be into doing content creation because he was dealing with so much anxiety. And I think that, you know, the last 15 months of streaming proves that for the most part, we should be really, really proud and that our achievements are very meaningful over the last 15 months. Arimarax says, what is your most favorite mod and why? Arimarax, you're gonna get me in trouble here with this question. I definitely have a favorite mod from each modder. So as an example, I am in love with Chogex's Dimensional Havoc these days because it brings back something that we have not had in a long time, which is just a really neat optional challenge to kind of dive into. If you look at Muscarine's stuff, Muscarine is a just phenomenal artist and animator. His fawn is like this amazing glass cannon that is very fragile, but does a ton of damage, is creepy, maybe not quite as lewd as his other classes. And for some reason, I find that character to be just a really cool, imaginative, and creative thing. You know, obviously I have to mention Marvin Seo. The Lamia is just absolutely unbelievable. And there's something about it that just speaks to me. The fact that it is got this duality of both creature and very self-conscious facade, that it's a healer and support role, but then also super aggressive. It's like, it's a bipolar class. And as somebody who's dealt with mood disorder issues his whole life, I feel like I kind of relate to it in a certain way. But I think just aesthetically and mechanically, it's gorgeous. It just feels like it's supposed to be. And so I think probably that's my best answer, is that if you were to ask me in terms of the context of certain mods and certain mod creators, I could give you a clean answer. My favorite mod overall, I don't know. Arngrim asks, what was the first sci-fi or fantasy novel you can remember reading as a kid? Because I didn't read a lot of books as a kid. I just wasn't a bookworm. I mean, I am old, but even then I was too much of a digital kid to really read stuff. I just was like, I was too hyper, I was too sensitive. It was hard for me to sit down and read. However, I did jump into a book called Spellfire, and I believe it's part of the Forgotten Realms series, if you have any idea what that is. And it basically focused on this like rogue, as I recall at least, this kind of roguish character, very medieval, very fantasy, and her name was Chandrel, and I loved that name. I just loved like reading about her adventures and that kind of stuff. I definitely dived super hard into the Lord of the Rings, but I immediately took a left turn into Sherlock Holmes and just consumed everything that I could about Sherlock Holmes. That is probably my favorite actual literary series. Something about that really turned me on, and I still love it today. Finally, X-Flare says, what's an adventure or wish of yours on your bucket list? That's a great question, X-Flare. So there were a few smaller things that I was able to accomplish in the last year that were on my bucket list. One of them was to become a streamer and become a content creator. Another one became making it to TwitchCon and actually meeting all these people, which was just mind-blowing. That was such an amazing adventure. I think going back to Europe and getting out of the United States is something that I have to do on the regular. I was able to do that a couple times. I was fortunate enough to spend a little bit of time in London and a little bit of time in Germany. I tiptoed into Holland, and that's about the most of it. And after I left the United States, I came back very depressed, because you leave the world you know, and you realize all of the things that you've taken for granted, and the things that you no longer have. But at the same time, when you come back to the world you know, you see it in a very different way. And I left Europe seeing all of this nuance and these incredible people, and thousands of years of history. And I definitely don't take for granted being an American or living where I live, for a lot of different reasons. And when I came back to the United States, that trip back was difficult, because I just saw strip malls. I didn't see nuance anymore, and I didn't see real history. My bucket list answer then is to get the hell back out of the United States and really do a nice long trip tour to Europe, and do that with some regularity if I can. Thanks so much for all of your questions for this first AMA video series, guys. I can't believe we get to celebrate 5,000 YouTube subscribers now. That just blows me away, and I'm very, very grateful. If you have any question for me and you would like to ask, feel free to join us on Discord in the Ask E5 Anything channel and drop it there for video number 2. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for being an amazing community, and thanks for watching.